Cincinnati Bengals getting their first win of the 2023 season on Monday Night Football, defeating the Rams and the Philadelphia Eagles. Kind of jogging to a 3-0 start for them this year, trying to get back to the Super Bowl. And how about Week 4 power rankings? Now that we've seen 3 weeks of NFL football, who are the top and bottom and middle class of the NFL? Coming up on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look into the NFL on the field and in the front office. With elite breakdowns, next-level analysis, and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL Show. Brian Peacock alongside Matt Williamson at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL. Thanks everybody for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Appreciate all the everydayers out there. Make sure you are subscribed on YouTube. Hit that notification, hit the thumbs up. Always appreciate that. And of course, you can find us everywhere you get your podcasts. I want to start in Cincinnati, Matt, with the Bengals, who defeated the Los Angeles Rams 19-16 on Monday Night Football. And clearly, Joe Burrow is not 100% right now. And he's playing like he's not 100%. Got it going a little bit more. Started finding a lot of Jamar Chase in that game. 12 catches, 141 for Jamar Chase. But, I mean, Joe Burrow dropping back 49 times is probably not how you draw it up for the Cincinnati Bengals right now. And the Rams did it. The Rams have done a really good job this season being a team that's undermanned, trying to develop talent on both sides of the ball and hanging in a lot of games and being a lot better football team than I think we thought they were going to be. They did a good job against the ground game to try to make the Bengals one-dimensional, and it ended up working out in the end for Joe Burrow and the Bengals. 49 attempts for Joe Burrow. He didn't have any touchdown passes, did have the one interception. But to me, what stood out for the Bengals is Lou Anarumo, the defensive coordinator for the Bengals. I mean, they did a phenomenal job limiting the Los Angeles Rams, and of course Trey Hendrickson and the gang up front doing a number on him. Couple sacks for Trey Hendrickson. He was all over the place, and it was the Bengals defense, not Joe Burrow dropping back 49 times, to me, that won that football game.
Yeah, 100%, and that's what this league's all about. You know, help each other out when you're down, type of thing. And the Bengals D's been on the field a lot. There were some numbers I pulled out of this game that I really think tell the story and reflect exactly what you're saying. I mean, I didn't think on a per snap basis, boy, Cincinnati's a lot better than LA tonight, you know, but they deserve to win. I'm not taking anything away from them, but the Rams were 1 of 11 on third downs. You know, like, to me, that was absolutely brutal for them. I mean, money downs, they did not come through at all. The Bengals weren't great on third downs, but the Bengals had 36 minutes of time of possession compared to 24 for the Rams, despite neither team dominating the turnover situation or dominating the run game. And you mentioned it, 6 sacks of Stafford. I mean, that to me was very, very telling. And the best player on the field was Jamar Chase. I mean, 12 for 141 for him. I mean, he bailed out his quarterback. You know, go to the stud receiver.
That was a really smart game plan. And it's funny because they were calling for it on the broadcast, and it took Jamar Chase a while to get going. And essentially they said, you know what? Let's find our best player and try to get it to him as much as possible. And, you know, in the end, they ended up winning an ugly one with a lot of field goals, 19-16. I don't know if it's one of those, what do they call it, scoregami, where it's the only time it's ever been that score. I think we've had 19 before. But when you see it, you could kind of tell, like, if you told me, hey, the final score of any NFL game was 19-16, I'm like, okay, I know what kind of game that was. And that's what kind of game this was. And the Bengals won ugly, but really important win for the Bengals, right? To get that first W, they're 1-2 now. Back on track. You're not in too big of a hole to dig yourself out of. The big question is, when is Joe Burrow going to get right? Because before the week, they talked about, oh, maybe we're even going to put him on short-term IR and have him return a little bit later in the season to get right. He played through it. After the game, he said it went as good as possible as far as not re-injuring it more. But it's not like he's going to be 100% next week either.
Who knows when he'll be right? And I think that's a huge issue with this team is, can you have this script time and time again? I mean, the crowd was lubed up Monday night at home. game you have to have. The rest of the division was 2-1. Can't go to 0-3. So, they pulled out all stops defensively and getting Burrow out there. But I hate commenting on injuries, but I can't imagine for the coming weeks he's going to be close to 100%.
I want to tease our mailbag for tomorrow, Matt, because there's a good question here, and it'll help us finish up this conversation with Burrow and the Bengals. And Michael says, by the way, at BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL on Twitter, or you can drop a question in the YouTube comments, and we'll get to them on Wednesday's mailbag as we do every week. Michael says, remember the Tua versus Herbert episode when the discussion was about how would Burrow play if he was injured all of last season? Are we finding the answer to that right now? This is kind of reminiscent of what we saw at the beginning of the year from Justin Herbert last year, Matt, with the broken ribs or the rib cartilage or whatever it was, and playing through it.
Again, I hate commenting on injuries. I'm not avoiding the question one bit, but it is certainly noteworthy. But not all injuries are created equal either. Like, I know this sounds goofy, but the fact that it's his right calf to me is much worse than his left calf. I mean, you got to think all a quarterback's power starts in, right-handed quarterback starts from his toes through his ankle, through his calf, through his knee on his right side, and, through your hips, a torque and all that, where you'd much rather be your front foot than the back foot. So I see what you're saying. It's not like all these guys, Tua, Herbert, and Burrow, have not had to go out there with injuries that we know about or don't. But he's certainly a tough guy, but he's certainly compromised as well. And real quick, I just wanted to double check this too, because, you asking about who knows when he's going to be right. The next 2 weeks, they go to Tennessee and then they go to Arizona, which are very winnable games, but they're on the road. And then they host Seattle, and then they finally get their bye. So that week 7 bye, at least it's not week 12. But as you might know, they come out of their bye and have to go to San Francisco and play the Bills. So he better get well during the bye.
Yeah, that's probably the date you circle is hopefully he doesn't get it hurt worse, and he's able to feel like he's 100% after the bye week going into the toughest portion of their schedule. It's well said, Matt, and that's really important for the Bengals and their entire season, because it's going to be hard for them to do this. It feels like every week, and
no question.
And
it's a tough formula, man.
What's funny though is I noticed, and I haven't really noticed this before. Joe Burrow is not the most physically intimidating quarterback in the world, right? It's like, he kind of does have skinny legs though, skinny calves, and I was paying attention to his calves more than I would normally.
Of course,
really for the first time. And it's interesting. He's on the sideline and getting like treatment while he's sitting there between drives. And so clearly it's bothering him enough to where it was a game time decision whether or not he played, but he's also at this point getting so used to playing hurt. He's had so many injuries since he's been in the NFL, just signed this big contract. Like, it starts to worry me, not only short-term for this season, but long-term for Joe Burrow. Are injuries going to limit what he could be in his career? Because it's at this point, it's getting to the stage where it's not just random injuries. It seems to be reoccurring to this one player.
No question. I mean, he's never really had a preseason, a training camp, an off season to really dedicate himself to being an NFL talent. You know what I mean? Because he always comes into the league compromised and comes into the season compromised. And maybe this isn't the best time to do it. We could have this conversation maybe in the off season, but I've been wanting to throw this out there. Like, if I asked you or our listeners, do you think Joe Burrow will ever win a Super Bowl? I think most people will be like, yeah, probably. He's young. He's awesome. But then if I said, you think Justin Herbert will ever win a Super Bowl? Do you think Josh Allen will ever win a Super Bowl? Do you think Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, Lamar Jackson? The answer to most of them is no. I mean,
they're certainly all not going to get one.
Exactly. They're all the AFC. They're all young. They're all awesome, et cetera, et cetera. But most are going to be no.
And you look around, okay, well, if it's no, what's the reason?
Well, Mahomes is one of them.
Yeah, Mahomes is a big reason for all of them, but individually, maybe injuries is the reason why.
That's where I'm going, right? I mean, if he's fighting those guys for that prestigious ring, or even a chance to go play for a ring in the AFC, that might be his fatal flaw, you know?
And as he himself said, when asked about a Super Bowl window, he said his career is his entire window. So does his career get shortened because of injuries and shorten that window,
Sure.
if that is the case?
Right. I mean, who knows? I mean, it's a tough game.
Yeah, absolutely. Still some questions with the Cincinnati Bengals, and good for them, though, to get that win. And they are a complete football team. They can win some ugly games, and even when Joe Burrow is not 100%, which is a good sign for them going forward in this season.
Huge.
So hopefully he does get 100%. We'll see what the Bengals are at full power mid to late season as well, and they're able to win enough games to stay in the hunt before then. Next, we've got the Philadelphia Eagles, who defeated the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Monday Night Football to become one of the few 3-0 teams in the NFL and power rankings as well. Coming up next. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by Nutrafol. Men, are you tired of weakening or thinning hair? Do you want to reach your full hair potential? Leading hair growth supplement Nutrafol helps improve your hair growth, visible thickness, and visible scalp coverage. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement clinically shown to improve your hair growth, visible thickness, and visible scalp coverage. Go to Nutrafol.com/men to take their health wellness quiz, identify causes of your thinning hair, and Nutrafol will give you a personalized plan for better hair health through whole body wellness. Nutrafol supports healthy hair growth from within by targeting root causes of thinning, such as stress, hormones, environment, anything going on in your life that could be causing that inside or out, nutrition, lifestyle, and metabolism through whole body health. Take the first step to visibly thicker hair and healthier hair. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering our listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com/men and enter promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Find out why over 4,000 healthcare professionals recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com/men. That is spelled Nutrafol, Nutrafol.com/men, and enter promo code LOCKEDONNFL. That's Nutrafol/men, promo code LOCKEDONNFL. So the Philadelphia Eagles are kind of on the other end of the spectrum from the Cincinnati Bengals, a good team that we thought would be good coming into the year, but have had almost I used the word earlier, jog. It's almost like they've jogged to 3-0. Like they're still warming up and they're still 3-0, and we haven't even seen the best version of the Philadelphia Eagles. And maybe the most impressive thing that they did this week was how they closed out the game and, just were able to say, we're going to end this game a little bit early and kind of close it out. And not give the Tampa Bay Buccaneers an opportunity in the fourth quarter to come back on them, even though they were, it was pretty far gone by that point anyway. But they kind of leaned on their neck a little bit, and it kind of showed the power of what the Philadelphia Eagles could be, even though they haven't really shown that 100% in the first 3 weeks of the season.
Yeah, and they're clearly the more talented team, the more accomplished team, better quarterback, better lines of scrimmage, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm not going to say Tampa fell to earth, but I don't think we expected them. 2-0 seemed a little rich for them to begin with. They're more of a 500 at best type of squad. Wanted to call out one guy for them, though, Mike Evans. I mean, what a season he's having. What a catch he made. Him and Keenan Allen, I was talking on Locked On Dynasty the other night, that at their age are just still tearing it up at a young man's position. So maybe Hall of Fame type guys there in Evans and Allen. But I wanted to focus on the Eagles, kind of like you mentioned, it does feel like they're sparring, jogging, like their A game has not yet arrived. And I think Hurts is to blame. That's probably the wrong word, or isn't quite at, runner-up MVP form. That's for sure. Threw 2 picks in this one, and good. I mean, I'm not killing the guy. Good, just not, an MVP caliber player that we've seen him be. But while you were reading the ad there, I wanted to double check because it's pretty clear their run game is dominating people right now. I mean, this is 2 weeks in a row, really 3 weeks in a row, that they've just run all over people. But they're doing it with running backs. So they're saving Hurts a little bit. And I went and, just did the quick addition. Hurts has 100 rushing yards this year. Like, okay, that's 3 games. I mean, that's probably a little under his career average. He's certainly capable of more, get the tush push and scramble here and there. But compared to his 100 yards, the Eagles running backs have 557. Like, Swift and Gainwell and these guys are doing the heavy lifting, so they're not beating up their best guy, the most important guy.
Right, and that's the smart way to play it. And look,
right.
He threw a couple picks in this game. He was 23 of 37 for 277 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. He still carried the ball 10 times and I think what's happening with a lot of these teams, I noticed it with the Chicago Bears as well, is teams are taking away the quarterback run more than they have in the past. And when they're facing a team, when they face a team that they know the quarterback is a weapon, they say, okay, we're going to fit up the run to where we make you give it most of the time, and then we're going to try to tackle the running back rather than getting hit with the quarterback runs. And which is super interesting to me because I would think you would rather try to tackle the quarterback than the running back, but teams don't seem to be playing it that way right now.
It's interesting. I mean, you bring things back to the Niners, I bring back stuff to the Steelers, but I think a lot of teams take this approach, but I can just speak extremely intelligent. Well, not extremely intelligently, slightly intelligently on the Steelers approach. But there was a Thursday night game here in Pittsburgh. Carolina came to town when Cam Newton and Christian McCaffrey were running over everybody. And the Steelers let McCaffrey run all over them and hit Newton without relent. I mean, every chance if you're going to run an option or a pitch type of play where he can keep it or not, they're just saying, please pitch it to Christian, and we're going to hit Newton in the chest over and over and over. And they've done that against Lamar for his whole career more than any defense I've seen. And I've always thought that was smart. Like if you're going to let me hit your quarterback, I may allow your running back to run for 150.
I guess it depends how scary the rest of the team is.
Right. And McCaffrey was scary and he had a huge game.
Right. The Bears teams are kind of taking away the run from Justin Fields. And that's probably the right way to play them because that's the most dangerous weapon. If he pulls it back and throws it, you're not worried about it. You're not worried as much about, Khalil Herbert and the group of, and really the offensive line creating space against your defense with their running game. With the Philadelphia Eagles, you probably don't want to get Jalen Hurts going, and you're probably not worried about Kenneth Gainwell or DeAndre Swift too much, but DeAndre Swift last 2 weeks has really come alive. He had 16 carries, 130 yards in this game, 8.1 average, and he did nothing in week 1. And once they started using him, he's clearly their best back and their most talented back. And so maybe teams will kind of go the other way with the Philadelphia Eagles and go back to saying, yeah, you know what? Okay, go ahead and run it, Jalen Hurts. We got to clog up the run because we can't let your running back go for 130 yards.
And I also think what might be on the horizon with the Eagles is, okay, they can beat us a lot of ways, but we can't allow them just to bully us down the field for 200 plus rushing yards over and over and over and control the clock. Right. And then you're going to see spikes from Goddard, Smith, A.J. Brown. They're going to start to see more one-on-ones, and that's dangerous as could be too.
The last drive of the game, 9 minutes, 22 seconds by the Philadelphia Eagles there. So really closed that one out. That was impressive.
Yeah, impressive.
They can beat you in a lot of ways, and we haven't even seen the best yet of the Philadelphia Eagles. So it'll be interesting to see where you think they should go in our power rankings, Matt. So we're going to talk a little bit about the power rankings next. We didn't talk much about the two losing teams here in Tampa and the Los Angeles Rams from Monday Night Football. Do you have any other thoughts on those teams before we get into the power rankings?
Are you worried about Tampa or the Rams? And I mean, I think one of those teams potentially could be playoff teams, but both of them had, well, it's a bigger conversation, but those were the two teams that I and a lot of people looked at and said, well, they recently won their Super Bowl. This is going to be an awful year. They're happy. They have their old ring. They have cap hell, and they're paying the credit card bills now. But both of them are better than that.
Yes, they are. I think they're teams that are going to be competitive. Are they good teams, though? I don't know about that. And I do start to worry when you see Stafford get hit as much as he did, and he was getting up slow a couple times. Is this going to, at the end of the year, will the well-coached, sort of upstart almost Rams team with Puka Nacua and Tutu Atwell, will that start to look a lot more like the team we saw last year if if Matthew Stafford starts getting banged around and knocked around as much as he did on Monday night. So that, like, how long can you keep it up? It would be my question for probably both of those teams, because you start to see their warts as well. Next, NFL power rankings. Who's at the top? Who's at the bottom? And what do we even make of the middle class of NFL teams right now, which I think the Rams and Tampa Bay Buccaneers are a part of? Next. Today's episode of Peacock and Williamson is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, and a very special offer for new customers of FanDuel for our listeners here with promo code Locked On. FanDuel.com/LockedOn to kick off this NFL season in style. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, because right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose on that first $5 bet. And if you're thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action than right now, early in the NFL season. The app is so easy to use. I love how the website and the app are both set up. You can find all the bets you want in all of the sports you want, and there's a ton of ways to bet on the NFL. Spreads each week, player props, over-unders. You can build your own parlays at FanDuel, which is one of my favorite things to do on the app or the website. And all you got to do is visit FanDuel.com/LockedOnNFL and get involved in all of the NFL action. Get involved in motorsports action if you want to. I always talk about the snooker. I still don't know what it is. Don't really. People always try to. I've said it a bunch, Matt, and people always say, "Well, let me tell you about snooker." I'm like, "Let me stop you right there. I don't really care all that much."
But you can bet it.
If you care about it, you can bet on it at FanDuel. There's a lot of sports, combat sports I don't care much about, but you can find that at FanDuel as well. So visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to kick off the NFL season in style. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. So taking a look at the power rankings right now, Matt, in the NFL after 3 weeks, I think we're learning a lot about some teams. I don't want to say this is, we're not going all the way back to the 1990s. And I know parity reigns in the NFL, but I think parity might only apply to about 18 teams in the NFL right now, because I think anybody from team 6, 7 to 25, I have no clue. Like, that is extreme parity. You could tell me that the 25th team in our power rankings is the number 7 team. I'd say, okay, you could probably have a good argument for it. But I think there is a clear top tier of teams where I would be shocked if one of these few teams at the top doesn't win the Super Bowl this year. And then on the other end of it, there's a couple teams where I'd be shocked if one of the 4 or 5 teams at the bottom does not end up with the number 1 pick in the draft, or the team that owns their pick ends up with the number 1 pick in the draft. So let's go through this, Matt, and see if we can figure out what those teams are and how they're ranked. And let's start at the top. Who's your number 1 in the NFL right now?
Okay, along those lines, what you said, because I just want to throw this out there to back up exactly what you said. I think there's 5 teams at the top, and people could put them in basically any order, and I'll give you my order here in 1 second. And then I think there's a 6th team that kind of stands alone. That's Dallas, that this lost to Arizona. But like 7, I don't know who 7 is. And on the other end of this, I think there's 2 horrible teams right now. And then there's 5 really bad teams fighting for the next tier of badness. So like 7 through 25 is pretty close.
The tier of badness. Okay, we're going to get to the tier of badness. What about the tier of goodness?
Okay.
It's got to be Dolphins or 49ers right now, right? And I'm not saying that just because they're 3-0. And look, there's 3 3-0s now after 3 weeks. It's Dolphins, 49ers, and Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles have started out a little slower. Like I said, it's sort of a jogging start, but I think they belong, and maybe they're number 3. But coming off a 70-pointer for the Dolphins. By the way, when it comes to the Dolphins' 70-point game, and we've thrown out a lot of stats. I'm sure you've seen a lot of stats everywhere. Over the last 5 games, the Miami Dolphins have scored, I don't know what the number is. They scored a ton of points, and some other teams have scored a lot of points as well. So even with the 70 points, they're actually not like way ahead of everybody or anything like that. But
they have 130 points for
this year, right? Yeah. If you go back even to last year, though, the last 5 games, The Chicago Bears have only scored 70 total in 5 games. The Miami Dolphins did that last week, and the Bears aren't even worse. There's teams that have scored in the 60s in overall points in the last 5 games. And if you go for points for this year, they're at 130. The next closest is the 49ers, right at the 90 points, I believe.
I'm scanning it now. No one else is over 100.
Yeah, Niners have scored 30 exactly in 3 straight weeks. So
they're at 90. They're number 2.
Pretty unbelievable.
It's remarkable.
Are they your number 1? Are they your number 2? Or are they not top 2 for you for the Miami Dolphins? Where would you put them?
I have San Fran 1, Miami 2.
That is where I had them ranked for our weekly Locked On power rankings that are going to be released any moment. And I will retweet those, and we can maybe reference those later on in the week if we want.
Okay, yeah.
That's exactly how I put them. Who did you put as your 3rd team then?
I went with the Bills. What they did this past week was utterly dominant. The sacks, the defense, Josh Allen just kind of being able to jog through that one. I think the Bills are pretty darn good.
So I have it this way, and I'm sure we have the same top 5. I put KC 3, I put Philly 4, and I put Buffalo 5.
Okay. I mean, they are the same top 5. I went San Fran, Miami, Buffalo, KC, just out of respect, and Philly 5.
Right. I would. So here's the way. Neutral site right now, I would have the Eagles over the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, I'd have the Kansas City Chiefs over the Philadelphia Eagles and the and the Bills. That's why I put KC 3, because I know they had a funky start to the season, but I mean they're the Chiefs, and they're going to be there in the end, and they're 3 for me.
Okay. So again, I mean, we're all basically in agreement. Is Dallas still? We don't want to go through the whole thing, but is Dallas still clearly number 6 for you, despite that loss? They are for me.
Dallas 6, and we talked about the Burrow thing. A preseason, I would have had the Bengals probably 6 in the top 6 group, and I would have talked about them like we're talking about the other teams here. But until Burrow gets healthy, I don't know. Once he does get healthy, and if they're able to win enough games and they're in it, then I think they would be the 6th team here. The Cowboys were so impressive defensively, but they haven't played impressive opponents in any of their games this season. So I'm kind of like after losing to the Cardinals, they dominated the teams they should have dominated, right? And so it's like, okay, they're a good team, but you lose to the Cardinals. Now I'm side-eyeing the Dallas Cowboys pretty hard. So they've fallen the furthest for me. In fact, I think I might have had a 2 last week. And I think they're at 6 right now for me. But, still I'm side-eyeing the Ravens anyway. And I'm already side-eyeing the Bengals because of Joe Burrow injury. Yeah. So there's nobody I'm going to put ahead of them right now either.
That's what I mean. Kind of by default, they still stick at 6 by themselves for me. And then 7 was like, I have no idea.
I actually put the Bengals 7, and
I can't do that yet.
Power rankings are supposed to be a snapshot of right now, so I don't know if the Bengals are 7 right now. But who else do you put there? I'll take the Bengals over the Packers and the Falcons and the Seahawks and the Ravens even, and the Ravens I think I put next. So
that's what I mean. 7 was awful for me.
Yeah,
and I'm a very strict believer in doing power ranks with how they're currently constructed right this minute. And that you said that, I mean, the Bengals are not themselves right now. So honestly, the Bengals would be like 15-ish for me. I didn't go through them all, but they would not be in this conversation because I don't think they're a big dog right this minute. It's hard for me to actually say this, but I think I would have the Browns at 7. I mean, just look at a point differential. They're by far the best one that was not in that top 6. Their defense this seems like an underreported thing that we should have been talking about more, but any advanced metric you look at, the Browns defense has been as good, and I know that that's a crazy term here, as the Dolphins offense. I mean, it's been blow your doors off good. There's only been 1 snap. The Browns defense has only been on the field for 1 snap in the red zone. The Texans or the Titans somehow got there last week, and then they got sacked and got out of the red zone after that. I mean, like, their D is ridiculous right now.
Yeah, I can buy that. I can buy that because of their defense, and I hate that they lost Chubb. I think it's going to hurt them. Last week they got through it, but they're still trying to figure it out themselves at running back. And I don't think it's going to be like, okay, 1 for 1, good job, we have Jerome Ford and we're done. It's not going to go that smoothly in the run game. But I do also am a sort of a running backs don't matter guy, even though if you go from one of the best in the NFL to to replacement level, or even above replacement level, it's going to hurt you a little bit if your quarterback's not playing big time ball. But luckily, Watson looked a lot better last week too, so that's a big key for them. And so if you just look at the snapshot of Watson right now, look better, defense is obviously legit. I'll buy the Browns right there. Yeah.
Again, if Chubb was there, I'd feel so much better about it. I mean, I'm not confident in Watson, but this is kind of by default.
I would have put the Browns, I think, 20 after last week, though. I don't remember where I ranked them exactly, but I was not confident at all in the Browns after the Chubb injury and how bad Watson has looked for, he has looked good for years, literally. I wasn't, despite the defense, they're maybe they're top of the middle class, but they're still a middle class team.
Me too. I was looking for this nugget, though. This is to back up the defensive stuff. In week 3, Tennessee had 6 first downs and 94 total yards. So if you omit kneel downs, because they don't really count as a drive at the end of the half, there's been 34 drives against the Browns this year, and they've given up 1 touchdown. I mean, it's nuts.
Some people might say that the Colts deserve to be somewhere up there, and I have them pretty far down, despite being 2-1, despite having a plus point differential on the season. I don't know what they're doing right now is sustainable for being a top half of an NFL team right now. In fact, I think there's all these NFC teams that go ahead of them. But again, like Packers, Lions, Rams, Saints, Falcons, Seahawks, Buccaneers, no idea, no clue. Like they might as well all be tied for 15 to me.
Yeah, I hear you. And I think like the Steelers and Ravens are in that conversation, and maybe even the Chargers, and a lot of, you can see good things happening, but they're very middle class. Well, or maybe slightly above.
You can't put the Arizona Cardinals at 32 anymore, right?
Nope.
So that distinction belongs to the Chicago Bears?
Easily. I mean, they're 32, and to me, Denver after this week is 31.
Well, they get to play each other too.
I know.
By the way, so that might have to be one of our 6-pack games, Matt. The Broncos and the Chicago Bears, and to be honest with you, they might be 32 and 31 right now in the NFL.
Oh, I think so.
And they're not looking good for either one of those teams.
On the flip side, we're getting Bills Dolphins this week too. So that's the total opposite. In terms of a great one versus awful one.
Ooh, that's going to be fun. I've got the Giants way down there. The Panthers, I think, are 31 for me. The Minnesota Vikings are among the what'd you call it? The tier of badness.
I think there's a tier of awful to me is Broncos and Bears. Tier of badness is Carolina, Zona, Houston, maybe not, Tennessee, Vegas, Giants.
Say again. So Bears,
Vegas,
go
Bears and Denver are tier of awful, tier
Okay.
of embarrassing.
Okay.
Tier of bad in some way, shape, or form is Vegas, Tennessee, Giants, still Arizona.
Yeah.
Carolina, Houston, subject to change.
It's pretty amazing because Arizona and Dallas have done the exact same thing because of one game in the opposite direction, right? They're like in this area, but they're now at 5 spots ahead or below where they were last week. But still, I think they belong in the
same neighborhood, just a different street.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, to be honest, we used to do, whenever I did the Football Today podcast on ESPN for all those years, every Tuesday I would do a power ranks, and that's how we did the news. This guy's hurt for the Titans. Some teams would just rush over super quick. And we always had a running joke that it would be in a 111 game series in Wichita, Kansas, neutral site. Dallas beats Arizona 98 out of 111.
Right.
This was one of those others. You know what I mean?
It just could have been one of those weeks. But I will say for the Cardinals, so when you are looking at these teams, the Chicago Bears are minus 59 point differential after 3 weeks. The Broncos are minus 53. The New York Giants are minus 55. The Arizona Cardinals are 1-2, and they are plus 5 point differential.
Yeah, they play hard. I mean, they're not going away.
When they lost, they only lost by a little bit, and then they went and beat the Cowboys. So, yeah, interesting.
Give them credit.
Super interesting. Maybe they belong in the middle tier. Who knows? We'll see. If they keep that up, they'll get back to the middle tier. I think the Rams got to the middle tier at 1-2 a lot faster than the Cardinals. Even if you look at their resume right now, they're not very different.
Right. Like Arizona's drifting towards the middle tier. I'm not willing to say you've earned it yet.
Yes. Fantastic stuff. Let us know what your badness and goodness tiers are. What did we miss? At BD Peacock, at Williamson NFL for tomorrow's Peacock and Williamson mailbag. Of course, you can drop a comment or a question on YouTube as well. Make sure you're subscribed there. Hit the notifications so you know when a new pod is available. Thumbs up. We appreciate that. And of course, you can find any Locked On podcast, including the Peacock and Williamson Show, anywhere you find your podcasts. Matt and I back tomorrow. Peacock and Williamson.